Good evening, everyone, and welcome to SocialFlight Live. I'm Jeff Simon. We have a great show for you tonight. Team AeroShell is here. It's going to be a lot of fun. We've got the whole crew here to talk to this evening. Before we get started, a few tips. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Tonight's show is going to be recorded and will be available probably by late tomorrow on socialflight.com, in the SocialFlight mobile app, and on YouTube. Just search for SocialFlight, one word, and that'll bring up the recording if for some reason there's an issue. If for any reason you have a problem with your PC, phone, or tablet in watching the show, you can always just restart it, and that should bring it right back to all of us. Going to be a bunch of small windows, and so there are some controls since there's a bunch of us talking on this broadcast, and there are controls through your app that allow you to zoom into one person or do things like that to make it a little bit easier. As always, we created SocialFlight in order to support General Aviation. That's the most important thing I can say every time we run this show, because we are here for you. We went and put together tens of thousands of aviation events, destinations, $100 hamburgers. I really urge you, in order to help support our industry during these very challenging times, to get out there and fly, and SocialFlight is such a great way to find that mission. It is completely free. There are wonderful ways to win prizes and things like that. It's just absolutely got a lot of fantastic things within it. And of course, great things like shows like tonight. And so we ask you again, check it out and be sure to spread the word to your friends. It keeps all of us going and helps support local FBOs, airport restaurants, and everyone that supports our industry. And so with that, I am going to do one quick thing, which is a shout out. We have a new supporter here at SocialFlight. It is Flying Eyes. Flying Eyes is, I had a pair for a while. I now have this new pair, and I have to tell you, please go check out Flying Eyes eyewear, because it is like nothing else out there. Not only the optics crazy, but I'll tell you, I'm going to put these on right now so you can see the new look of Jeff at SocialFlight. What's really amazing about them is you can't feel them when they're on, like at all, under a headset, etc. And you can bend and twist and mangle these things, and they're completely indestructible. So I just want to give a shout out to that. Be sure to check them out. I think they've got some great deals, and all you have to do is go to their website and be sure to mention SocialFlight, of course. So with that, let's bring on Team AeroShell. I am going to go here to my control panel and start clicking to give all these guys the opportunity to turn on their cameras and hop off mute, everything that needs to happen for this crew. We'll see if we can get this. This is the largest group of presenters we have ever done in one spot, all at one time. And I think we've just about got everybody. Jimmy, Alan, Steve, Mark. Let's see. We got to get Brian on here. And make sure everybody is live. If anyone can't speak, I'll do my best. Sound off. Alan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
We'll be like a flight formation. Jimmy, how about you?
I got you loud and clear.
Excellent. And Steve?
Smoke on.
All right. Mark?
I'm here.
And Brian?
Loud and clear.
Welcome so much, guys, to SocialFlight Live. This is the biggest thing we've attempted, to have the most iconic crew of all General Aviation air shows together in one place and at one time. And just so everyone understands this, lead pilot is Mark Henley, as you can see there. Brian Regan is the right wing. Left wing is Steve Gustafson. And then we've got the slot, Jimmy Fordham. And one of the founding members of the team and still a team owner, Alan Henley. How are you doing, Alan?
I'm doing great.
Hey, I first need to do a personal thank you to you. It was got to be 3-4 years ago. I had the very amazing, like, thrill of a lifetime opportunity where I got to fly with you guys during a show. It was unbelievable. Jimmy, I'm pretty sure it was in back with you. I know the back of your head looks better than your face.
If the glare was in your eyes.
So that was just amazing. The grace, I mean, it's just the sound. It's just absolutely remarkable. And Alan, I'd like to start with you because I'd like to understand the beginnings. You're one of the founding members of Team AeroShell. Tell me a little bit about how this iconic team got started.
All of us that started the team, we were all flying solo routines in a T6, and we happened to be at a air show in northeast Louisiana, a little town of Lake Providence. And Steve, his dad had passed away the year before, and that was one of the local show, but it was one of the last shows that Merle did, was flying the Corsair. And anyway, since Steve's dad was gone, we were just kind of reminiscing about Steve's dad and all the air shows he'd done, all from way back. And Steve goes, says my dad used to do a dual act with a guy named Bob Speed. And he said, if you'll go out fly, he said, and let's go out and go do, a loop or two together. I'd like to try it. And I said, well, heck, I'm game. And so we went to the motor and told him we wanted to get a little extra fuel and go out and practice a little bit. And that's what we did. And of course, back in those days, they didn't have, you could pretty well, any maneuvers you wanted to do, you could so we went out early that morning and went and just looping and rolling together, and came back and actually put it in the show that day. Instead of doing 2 solo acts, we actually did a little dual act, and everybody really liked it. And the air boss that was a fella, he was from Little Rock, and he was also one of the planners for the CAF air show they had at Pine Bluff, Arkansas, which was like 2 or 3 weeks later. And so they invited us to come up there. And there was another guy, a guy named Ben Cunningham. He lived in Jackson. He was in Lake Providence, but his airplane wasn't there, so he wasn't flying with us. But when we got to Pine Bluff, he had talked to the air boss, a fellow named Bob Gennard, and he said, why don't the three try to put something together? So we actually went up a couple of days early, and they put us up, got us a hotel room a couple of days early and a little bit of extra gas, and we went out and actually developed and built a 3-ship formation routine, and we flew that at that Pine Bluff show, and it was a big hit. And next thing you know, the phone starts ringing, and here we are 36 years later now, we're still flying, doing the same thing.
And who was in that first three ship?
I was flying lead, and Ben Cunningham was on the left wing, and Steve flew right wing.
Excellent. That's that's pretty impressive. And if just a quick note for any of you guys, since we got a bunch of people, if you're not talking, probably best to press your mute, just because sometimes there's some background noise going on. But so from the very beginning, like Jimmy, let me ask you, in the very beginning, was it always T6s? Did you guys own T6s from the beginning?
Well, that's all we've ever had.
Yeah,
they always go, why do y'all like the T6? Well, I've always liked it because it's a big airplane. It's easy to see, makes a lot of noise. It's got a tremendous smoke system. And the main thing is that's the airplane we had. My dad bought the one I'm flying, or actually Brian's flying it now. I flew it for 24 years with the team. But my dad bought that airplane in 1973, gave $5,000 for it. Steve's dad bought the T6 that Steve's flying today, the year Steve was born. And
So Steve, did you guys all know each other at the beginning, or how did you make what was the evolution like to become Team AeroShell?
Well, we met flying at air shows. I met Alan in Jackson, Mississippi. He was flying a stock Stearman, and I'd seen people fly stock Stearmans before. And then next thing you know, I'd watch him doing an English bunt in a stock Stearman and ringing this thing out. And I said, I've got to meet this dude. So they had the function that night, and he comes walking around there, and he said something about it. I said, oh, so you're the guy that's flying Stearman, huh? I said, heck, let me shake your hand. That was pretty awesome. And I don't know, a friendship started from right there. We were both young, and we learned a lot from each other, and it's been a whirlwind adventure. It totally, from going to Nova Scotia, Canada, to El Salvador, Central America, all over. I flew with Alan for what, 24 years, Alan? 23, 24 years.
4 years.
Yeah, 24 years. So you really get to know each other doing this type of stuff, and wouldn't trade anything for it. I tell you what, I just sit and chuckle to myself sometimes, all the stuff, adventures that we've been on.
It's just amazing. And each of you own your own planes, right?
That's correct.
That's correct. My dad bought mine with 5 other people. They paid $200 a piece. They paid $1,200 for it. And my dad bought everybody out of this thing over the years except one guy wouldn't sell. And I soloed as a junior in high school, and he never told me who owned the other part. He wouldn't buy it, sell out. And when I went to A&P school, when I came back, the bill of sale was on the Christmas tree. And I came over there, and he said, look at that. And I opened it up, and I had a friend of mine named Dick Brown was on the bill of sale. I said, what's Mr. Dick's name doing on here? He said, well, son, this man has been saving this airplane for you for 20 years. I've been trying to buy it from him, and he said, nope, I'm giving mine to Steve. He said,
Wow.
I try every 5 years. I said, okay, come on, Dick, go on, sell me your part now, come on. Especially when I started flying in high school. He said, look, Slicks that's what my dad called me. That was my nickname, Slicks. And he says, Slicks is flying it now, let me go ahead and buy you out. And he went, nope, I'm saving mine for Steve. So that was pretty emotional, pretty neat deal. So he said, I think tomorrow you need to go visit Mr. Dick and thank him for that. So Mr. Dick, he's still around, and a great friend, and always been there.
Wow, what a remarkable story. That's
Yeah.
you never forget your first plane, right? For those of us fortunate to have had one, and I think kids grow up around it, and the idea that this became, not just part of your family, but that the other partner was waiting to give it to you, it says something about you.
I used to sit in mine when I was in kindergarten and make airplane noises, and I remember sitting in it, and it was so big to me, and just thinking, one day I'm gonna fly this thing. Now I think in that T6, I've got 9,000 hours in just that one.
Wow.
That
So
one.
tell me about the evolution
Just
how did the
today I flew it.
So tell me the different the team names and what you went through. I mean, Mark, it looks like you've joined us back then, so I'll actually ask you. Fill me in on the team and its name as it changed, and how you became Team AeroShell.
Well, obviously, we were the North American aerobatic team for many, many, many years. And then, we didn't really have a name sponsor. And so in 2001, we approached them before the 2001, but we approached AeroShell, and they expressed an interest in becoming the name sponsor. So we entered an agreement starting in the season 2001 to be named AeroShell Aerobatic Team, and we've been that ever since.
That's because I mean, for a lot of people, myself included, not to dismiss in any way being the North American aerobatic team before that, but you're certainly known pretty widely right now when people hear that sound as Team AeroShell.
Well, Steve's
Well, we
got a good
started
story. Steve, tell them about the
Uh,
lady that in 2001 came up and said we did good, but remember that story? Tell that
Yeah,
one.
that
That
was
was
a
a good one.
that was a guy actually.
Was it a
But
guy? Okay.
yeah, but you're right. We started out the North American Aerobatic Team. First, the airplanes weren't even painted the same. Then we finally painted them, and we flew as that for years. And we had a few sponsors. Some of our first sponsors that are still with us, Strong Parachutes, and they were one of our very first sponsors. I don't know if you guys know that they were one of the first Alanos. And but anyway, we were flying. The first year we got painted as AeroShell. We go to Sun and Fun, and we fly, and we go to Shell to sign autographs. We're signing these cards and all this stuff. And this guy walks up to get his deal done, and we like to interact with them, talk, and I always like to hear other people's adventures in general aviation, what they fly, how they got started. I just love to hear that kind of stuff. And anyway, this guy he said, well, I watched you guys today. I said, you did? He said, yeah. He said, you guys are good, but I'm telling you, there's a team out there called the North American Aerobatic Team. Now, those guys are really good. I said, well, that's us. We just got the AeroShell. We got their team of the painted. And he goes, oh, turn around and walked off.
You don't hold a candle to those other guys.
I ruined his day. But
oh my God, that's funny to say the least.
We had a similar thing in 2001. We used to go over on the way to Sun and Fun. We'd go by Spruce Creek over there where Gene lived, and then we'd all fly over, and there's a big gaggle. And we had just painted the airplanes. The airplanes blue and white for 10 years, and then we put big AeroShell on the bottom of the wing. And anyway, I said, well, let's, on the first pass going in, let's do an overhead over the field so everybody can see our new paint job. And so anyway, we did. We flew over and came back and landed. Well, anyway, I happened to see a friend of mine about an hour later, and the guy came over and says, man, I saw this new team came flying by and said they were painted red and white. Who was that? And I said, oh, well, that was us. We just got a new paint job.
So that, basically you already answered the questions in terms of like why T6s, but I mean, it's because you all grew up with them, right? I mean, that's where it all comes from.
It is. And I tell you what, they're such a great airplane. They're well built. Everybody that ever flies one is impressed with the agility and everything and how well they do and everything. And they're just really a neat airplane. I've flown all that other stuff. I've flown kits and extras and Spearmans and all that wild stuff, done a bunch of that stuff, acro sports and everything. And, after you shove your eyes out of your head about 10 times, you're like, you know what, I'm getting back to my iron airplane. And it just has a way of talking to you. These warbirds have a way of speaking to you.
So there's an eloquence to the routine. There's like a way, of course, like the style. Like you only have to see out of the corner of your eye or just barely hear you to know you guys are the ones in the air. You don't even have to half the time be looking. You're also like, oh, Team AeroShell's up. Let's go take a look at that. Did you guys evolve to that on your own? Is it based on the aircraft's abilities? How did you come up with the style of what you choose to do?
We evolved totally. I actually am the one that came up with the routine. Our routine is all about energy management, and you have to keep that energy. And each maneuver leads in for the energy for the next maneuver. And if you change it up, we've tried to change things, and we've tried this and tried that. And the next thing you know, you lose 20 knots for the next maneuver and you have to climb or go back out. Or most importantly is losing sight, which is very, very dangerous. I've been doing air shows since I was 19 and I'm 60 now. And every accident I've ever seen with formation or formation aerobatics, they lost sight of who they were flying on. And our routine is designed to never, ever lose sight of each other unless we're breaking apart doing a bomber and we're actually did it on purpose to go away. That's totally different. But I think that's from doing that, it just keeps everything safe. And if things aren't safe, they're not fun.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to enjoy them. So we want to make sure we keep it safe all the time.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, obviously, I had the opportunity to fly with you guys, and one of the things I'm always impressed by is how many people get the opportunity to fly with you, which is, I think, because of the number of you, because of the aircraft, and because of your personalities and who you are. So tell me a little bit about the fact that you've opened this up to so many people to see what it's like to fly with you.
Yeah, I tell you what, we've had so many, been flying long enough now, there's people in the airlines and the military all over, we're old enough now that people they're veterans that flew with us from way back, and and that's part of it. You need to share these experiences if you can, because that's all about, inspiring the younger generation to get into this. A lot of these younger, in my opinion, these younger generation, they're searching and they don't know that there's an opportunity in general aviation to get out there and find out something about yourself. You might not think you're capable of something. Well, if you ever get in there and you work hard at it, you might surprise yourself and find out what you really are capable of. Because I never realized I was going to be flying formation aerobatics 6 and 8 feet off someone's wing at night, flying all over the country. So that's pretty amazing to me. And also I'm an ag pilot. I've been prop dusting for 38 years, flown I don't know how many different types of airplanes, but on the other note, I put a new engine on my T6 today, General Aviation engine, and this is engine number 7 on my airplane. Ran every one of them to TO, but I flew it today, and Alan, it was one of those when you put it on, I didn't even have to adjust the carburetor, the idle, the mixture, the prop. I literally did nothing. I could not. Usually you have to tweak a little something, because you put new engine mount rubbers on, and if you got to tweak something. I literally, it was spooky. It was smooth as silk. I've got Jim Jeffries going to come balance the prop later this week. And I said, well, I can't wait for you to find out, because right now it doesn't act like it needs it.
Wow, that's amazing. And is that now? I've always heard that the T6s are surprisingly reasonable aircraft to maintain and to work on. Tell me a little bit about that.
Well, they're built so well. They were built to do what we do with them. They were built to train students, and so they're very robust. And as long as you keep an eye on them, and the main thing with the T6 is corrosion. You got to really keep an eye on that and make sure you keep that down. And ACF 50, I spray my airplane down every 2 years with that, and keeps the corrosion totally gone. Every other angle, I spray it down, and it lubricates the cables while I'm in there. So we keep these birds in top-notch shape. I can say they really are. As much as we fly them, we put about 250 hours a year on these airplanes every year.
Wow. So that doesn't take long at that to to get to new engines and new work and everything
And
else?
every 5 years, 5 to 6 years, you're looking at another engine. This engine was 6 years.
Yep.
The last one just took off.
Wow. So you mentioned they're flying at night. I'm going to go around the horn a little bit here. Jimmy, can you tell me a little bit about what it's like to do a night air show? Oh, looks like we might not have audio from Jimmy, so I'm gonna bump up and ask Alan about that.
But it's very.
Oh, there he is.
Hear me now? How about now?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Got me now?
Jimmy, I think we don't have a good enough connection for that, so I'm going to bump over and actually ask Alan about that. If you can tell us a little bit about the night air shows.
We started doing the night air shows long time ago, and part of the main motivation for doing those was because of the conditions. It's generally right at sundown. The winds lay down. It's a little bit cooler. It was just a fun time to do an air show. And we used to do it just kind of right.
Your callback?
Used to do it as the sun was setting. But anyway, we figured out with some of the extra lighting and stuff on the airplane, and with our the way we light up the smoke, we started flying even late, even 10, 15 minutes after sundown. And it's amazing though that, when you're looking up from the ground, it actually looks fairly dark, but when you're up in the airplane at 1,500 feet looking down, it's actually the ground is illuminated more than you think. And so we can actually still see pretty good compared to what the people on the ground can see for the first, say, half of the routine. And when you get down to the last part of it, it is starting to get dark, but we can still make out references on the ground. You can see where the runways are and buildings and that sort of thing. Of course, they generally turn the runway lights on, so you've got those references to use. But it's just doing a night show. It's just fun.
I can only imagine. It sure is fun to watch. Are there issues when you're as lit up as you guys are? Are there issues because with night vision when you're looking at the lead or at the next plane over, and because of that you have to be looking at some pretty bright lights in staying in formation as opposed to trying to avoid that? Is that an issue?
So it can be. It sometimes.
Even volunteer.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but Brian, I think we need to keep your mic off there.
Brian, turn your mic off. But we did, yes, it can be a little bit of a distraction, especially once we put these aero leads LED lights in. We actually ended up having to come back and paint the top of the landing light lenses black that shine up toward us because it was actually too much. Mark did them all at one air show. He said, "Man, I can't take it anymore." So we pulled them all on, got some masking tape, but the hardest part about it is when we're together, it's fine because everybody's lit up. From the guys at the ground, it looks phenomenal, but they can't see what we see. The worst part to me about flying a night show is landing at night. It's not about landing, it's about you're landing with somebody in front of you still on the runway. So when you put the tail down on a T6, you can't see in front of you. So what we do is the guy in front of us, he might land on the left side, the next guy's going to land on the right side, the next guy's going to land on the left side, and we stagger them that way on purpose. So you have to be disciplined about your landing. You got to be able to land straight and put it where you want it to be. But that way, if something was to you know, you would go by some. We haven't ever gone past anybody, but it's just, to me, that's once we finish the deal and we are gathering up on the ground
Mm-hmm.
is the hardest part to me.
And does that include the kind of taxi and spin thing that you guys do with all the smoke?
Yeah. Well, we make sure we call that before we ever spin. We always make sure, okay, you know, we designate on lines. As we're coming up, Mark will say, all right, I'm going to stop on the dash just past the taxiway Delta. Brian, you start on the next one, then Steve, and then Jimmy. Or we might stop on the north side of the dash lines. And then once we're in position, then Jimmy says, I'm ready, and then we go.
Okay.
And then sometimes it's a while to clear out, and you can't taxi until you can start seeing again.
Yeah, sometimes you kind of wonder how close that other guy is. The other thing is you got to worry about when their tail comes around toward you with the power up. You need to put a little forward stick and make sure he doesn't lift up your tail. Yeah.
I've got a good one. Alan, you don't remember this. Alan, you remember we flew Branson, Missouri? You remember that one?
It's been a long time ago.
All right. Well, I won't forget it, because what we ended up doing was the weather got bad and they weren't able to shoot off all the pyro. So we happened to fly, and this weather was moving in. And just as we flew, we're coming into land. And just as we touched down, and as I put my tail down to get blind, they lit off all the pyro on the left side of the runway right next to me.
Oh my
the
God.
whole fireball blinded, it was huge. And just for that instant, the next day at the pilot briefing, I went in there and I found the pyro guy, and I went and got a pair of fake underwear and I drew brown marks in them. I handed it to him. Man, you see what you did to me? Man, don't ever light the pyro off when everybody's landing. Woo! But anyway.
Wow.
Yeah.
Hey, Mark, I'd like to switch over to you. How about some like what was your favorite memory or some other things that you could come to mind here?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, you know, we do so many air shows. We do a lot of shows for the first time, but then we'll do some shows we do every year. For example, like we go down to Stuart, Florida, and you think about all the way down in South Florida, but all of us feel like it's a homecoming because we've done that show, I think, over 20 times. And
Wow.
so, I mean, I feel it's just as home in Stuart, Florida as I do anywhere else in the country. So it's, sometimes it's, when we start doing, shows over and over and over, it just, when you get there, you kind of know everybody, you know what to expect. It's just, and down there, we always have we got a lot of friends in Stuart, Florida, so we never have a shortage of a dinner invitation. So
I can only
I don't know.
imagine.
I tell you, one of you're talking about the night shows. I remember early on, this was before when we were still red, white, and blue. We did a night show outside the Officers Club at Tyndall Air Force Base. And I remember when we came in, Frank Borman and some others were standing at the steps in the O Club when we walked in, and they go, man, that's the most impressive thing I've ever seen in my life. Because back then, nobody flew much, at night, and it's nice to have seen how night shows have developed. We later, when we started using that, we robbed the idea or borrowed the idea from a guy named Bob Davis. He had a tail light on his Sukhoi, and we asked him if we could copy that, and so we put the light on the tail. Well, that particular year we went to El Salvador, and so we'd never actually used the tail light in an air show, and so and that's kind of that air show is pretty loose. I mean, they let you do about anything you want. So Alan, he said, I'm gonna go up and do a solo. So went up and did a solo, and he had that light on. As soon as he landed, we all ran, man, you won't believe what that light looks like. And so they said, man, it looked like your tail was on fire. So when we got back home, that was in January. I think our first actual, domestic or air show in the U.S., I think was at Patrick Air Force Base. And we all had the tail lights on. And they did the same thing that they did at Tyndall. They had an officers club that was out on the beach. And we went out and did a routine after sunset. And of course, we came back. Of course, nobody at the airport because it was a remote show. So we put the airplanes up. We go back to this officers club, and all the Warbird guys were running. Man, what did y'all do? How did you do that? And I think we were telling it was all fiber optics or something. I forgot what story we made up. But like I said, always doing the night show. People have just always been impressed, and but really, it's for us. It's actually more enjoyable than doing a day show because it's usually cooler, it's usually calmer, and we just enjoy doing it. And that's one thing that our routine, as Steve was saying earlier, the way it's designed, we don't do a lot of breakups and rejoins. We stay in formation quite a bit, and because at night it's a lot harder to join at night than it is in the daytime, so we only have to do that a couple of times in our routine, and so that minimizes the objective danger of trying to operate at night. We get back into formation fairly quickly, and so we typically stay there, and so it makes it a lot safer for us to operate that way.
That makes sense. Steve, I'd like to switch over to you again. A lot of people wonder what it's like kind of being in this air show world. Like, what's the behind the scenes life of going to, in between air shows, when you get there, what you do kind of, do you practice before anyone sees it at different times? What's kind of a little bit of the behind the scenes, even the part where maybe you hang out with all the other performers?
Well, I'll tell you what, we just have a blast. There's no doubt about it. We got some stories. Some of them we probably don't even want to share, do we, Alan?
Oh, you can share.
We've had some really, really, really good ones. I guarantee you that. We've just become friends. We're more than that, and that's a secret to a team. The longevity of a team is not just about the flying. It's about the camaraderie and the trust and getting along with each other. I've seen so many teams break up. The Northern Lights, that they just never got along. When they got through flying, they went their separate ways. When we get done, we're like, hey, where are we going to eat? Hey, what are you on the mood for? So we go to eat together when we get done. Go on vacation
no matter
together.
how tense it might be at the end of the day, but 5 minutes down the road, we're all laughing. That's some funny bastards here.
You guys all stay at the same place when you're at like air shows?
Yeah. Hell no, not the same room. But we do debrief, and we get together after every air show, and a lot of times we'll do our debrief at the hotel, back at the room, because that's usually the best time, because you don't want to do it right after you land, because usually there's people around, and if you want to get on to somebody or tell somebody something, that's not a good time to do it in front of anybody, so right. And we're pretty hard on each other. I mean, you got to have thick skin to be a member of this team. I mean, and that goes for everybody. Everybody's going to get, but it makes us better. It makes us better by doing that. But once we get that done, everybody's good to go. Nobody carries a grudge. Nobody gets mad about it. They just, actually laugh it off. But we know to work on that the next time, and it helps become better.
Now, do y'all, Brian, do y'all have day jobs, or is this your main thing? What's involved in being an
He's a
AeroShell
movie
pilot?
actor.
Yeah, I'm a part-time actor.
Yeah, he is.
Pilot/actor, and kind of going at that right now. I've had a lot of time to practice this year, with COVID. So hopefully I'm getting better. But this group is not afraid to work, and we'll do any job that comes by. Mark stays busy. He dove into the DPE work and instruction and everything else, and there's no shortage of things. Somebody will pull you aside and say, hey, can you help me work on this thing? And everybody's usually ready, so
Yep.
It worked out pretty good.
Now,
I gotta run for a minute.
Some of you are mechanics also, is that correct?
Yeah, thank goodness. I gotta admit, we've got some really good mechanics on this team. Alan, Mark, and myself. Dude, Brian lost an engine down in Midland, Texas, and I don't know, Mark. We had that engine off and on the ground. I forgot how we blew the commemorative Air Force's mind. We had the engine off. How long did it take us, Mark?
Oh, Mark's
40
audio
minutes?
is not on. Hold on.
4 hours? I can't remember. It was crazy. We prop off, did.
Yeah.
There it goes, Mark.
I know we went out and we went to the pilot briefing, which was at about 9 o'clock. At 10 o'clock we started, and I think at about 1:30 we had it on the floor. And then we went and flew, came back and took all the accessories and stuff, started pulling all the baffles and stuff off. And the guy showed up from Covington with a fresh engine like 8 o'clock that night. And we had the engine on the mount, safetied at like 11. And I said, look, I've been working, it's been hot. I said, let's go to the room. I said, we'll come back out here in the morning. So we showed up back at the airport about 5:30 in the morning, and we flew it at 11. And the guys at the CF, they're like, man, y'all come help us work on some of our stuff. Y'all changed an engine in about 24 hours. It's
Wow.
like, nah, I think, I did this one because I had to.
24 hours to change an
Yeah,
engine.
we changed his engine in less than 24 hours.
Less than that. Oh, it was way less than that.
It didn't take long. It was, like I said, it was 24 hours we had it flying. Now,
Wow.
the biggest thing was we had Covington was nice enough. They had a spare engine. Alan had a spare engine on the ground at Covington. And if it wasn't for that and the fact that they volunteered on a Saturday afternoon to take off driving with it and bring it to Midland, Texas, we'd have been in a pickle. But because they brought the engine and we had it changed out in less than 24 hours.
That is amazing. I'm gonna call. See, you got to call Team AeroShell if you need to overhaul your engine. I think that's the message here.
Well, we didn't overhaul. We just changed it.
Okay,
Big
swap it
difference.
Swap
Jonkin
it out.
Aviation.
Fair enough.
Great
Definitely.
movie.
So
That's the ones that do.
how about the big letter time? Like what's involved with working with the FAA through air shows? Dare I ask?
They're not bad. Most of them, believe it or not, most of them know us, and every now and then you'll run into one that's just, but our paperwork gets looked at every weekend, just about. And I mean,
One of the things they do now is
they do it.
the FAA, when they inspect us, they
Whoop,
Your mic's not working.
sorry, lost you for a
one of the
second.
things the FAA does now, they actually put our inspection results into a database. And I've had, let's just say, so the first week in June, we do an air show, and I've had people come up the next weekend from the FAA. I said, you want to see our paperwork? He said, no, I already looked at it. I said, well, how'd you look at it? They said, well, so-and-so looked at it last week. They said, you guys are good. You're good for the end of the month. And so then, a lot of the FAA now, they actually now can share a lot of that information. It makes it a lot easier on us.
Yeah, that certainly helps. Do you find that with the type of aircraft that you have and the age of them, et cetera, that you have to do a little education though with some of the folks at the FAA?
Yeah, I think we shared a story earlier about, most of the newer built airplanes all have an FAA approved, pilot operating handbook. But because the T6 was built back in the 40s, it was before they had a pilot operating handbook. Now the Army and the Navy had what they call their -1 or their flying handbook, but that's not an FAA approved manual. And so if you go into the TC data sheet and the FAA, when it was certified, it wasn't certified with a operator's handbook. They just used placards and instrument markings, and that's all that's required. And they've had the FAA wanting to know where our POHs are, and they're surprised to find that we don't have them, but they apparently didn't read that regulation.
We got one that good. I got thinking about a good FAA story. We got a good one, Jeffrey. We put these lights on the back of the airplane, and they're all approved. We've got paperwork on them and all that stuff, right? Well, anyway, we're in the pilot briefing, and they were talking about pyro. If you have pyro, it needs to be listed, and the FAA wants to know about the pyro and all this stuff. So we went and flew. And it looks like fire coming out of the back of the airplanes. Oh, the next morning he was running into the hangar. I mean, feet stomping. He was smoke running out of his ears. You guys told us that you didn't have any pyro on board, and I saw that flame coming out of the back. I want to see those airplanes now. And I think about it, was it you, Mark, that walked in over and said, hey, it's just a light. Come here, it's a bulb out the back.
Yeah, I just told him. I walked around, I just pointed at the light, and he just shook his head and walked out. Didn't say, I'm sorry, I was mistaken. Man, that's a pretty cool effect. He just looked, shook his head, and walked out and didn't say one word.
Well, we'll be really nice because I already got a note saying, hey, the FAA is on our meeting.
Oh, really?
Believe it or not.
Well, I'm not telling you what it is, though.
I mean this all in the most loving possible terms. Absolutely.
Yeah, you only got one.
Only one raising their hand. So one of the other things, having obviously such a group of you there, every time that I've talked to airshow pilots, they have told me that the most difficult part or dangerous part of an airshow is getting there in these aircraft from everywhere you're coming from and trying to make it there. Do you guys always travel as a group during the season, or is that a challenge no matter what because you're coming from different places?
Well, we usually each of us come individually. Now, sometimes Steve and Jimmy go together because they live close to one another, but most of the time we just, whatever's convenient. We have a time we need to be at the event, and everybody just leaves at whatever appropriate time they need. Now, sometimes we'll converge, somewhere along the way and go in as a group, but there's a lot of times we just end up one at a time. But I tell you, having good radio equipment makes a big difference. We've got the Aspen HSI artificial horizon moving map combinations in the airplanes, and those things are so good because we can file IFR. We have autopilots in the airplanes, and so we can file. We've all got nice GPS. They're all IFR certified, and so because one thing about the airshow business you got to remember is you don't get paid till you show up, and so we're going to make sure we show up. But that's one of the things that's made us reliable is the fact that we're all IFR current and we're all IFR qualified with the airplanes, and we can leave. There's a lot, if you look back over the years, there's been a lot of people get killed scud running in airshow airplanes, and we just don't do that. I mean, there's no reason to be down low dodging wires and towers and stuff. We just go ahead and file and go to altitude. Our only hazard then would be, maybe a mechanical problem. And these airplanes are so reliable that doesn't come along very often.
Yeah, that makes sense. And I'm also a huge fan of Aspen. I mean, I've got them in the Bonanza. It's going into our Mustang right here behind me. Aspen's, it's pretty cool to see those in the Texans that you've got.
Yeah, well, we've also got the L3 Lynx units in. And so for situations where with traffic and of course, that's where I get all, actually get my weather product. That is such a nice unit. And it obviously works well with the L3, I mean, with the Aspen units. The L3 and Aspen work well together, and it makes a very nice combination.
So, what kind of advice would you give people that are just starting to think about maybe that, like, this is you have their dream job and they want someday to do that? Like, how do you get started?
Well, I'll tell you what somebody told me a long time ago. They said, if you want to make $1 million in the air show business, start with $2 million.
Yeah, there you go. So
I don't know, Steve,
how do people get started in it, and what kind of things do you recommend as people to start training, even to just get started in aerobatics?
We've had people all the time, that want to come and fly with us, and it can be a very humbling experience. I'm serious. We've had people that are very, very talented, and after one day, they're like a dog with a tail tucked between their legs, ready to run. They're like, how in the world? I said, look, I didn't start flying right here in one day, not in 1 week, not in 1 month. When Jimmy joined the team, he flew with us for almost 2 years before we put him in the slot position to really, but he was dedicated enough. You have to be dedicated and learn the right way. What we want is somebody that has T6 time or low level warbird heavy iron air show experience. And then we need somebody that's got formation aerobatic experience. We're not going to take somebody in there, try to train them from scratch. They're going to have to do that on their own, and then come to it, because it takes so much time. I mean, it really does. It's an evolution of time to fly where we are. If you pull out some of our old films when we first started, hopefully nobody does it, they'd be going, ooh, yeah. But over time, my advice is to anybody that wants to get into this, go for it. There's nothing to hold you back. But the only thing I do want you to do is fly where you're comfortable. That's the main thing that I say for safety wise. Never push yourself to try to fly where somebody else is. Don't try to fly, well, that guy does this or this guy. And if you try to do that and you're not comfortable, you're never going to learn anything. You're actually not going to learn what you're doing because you're not comfortable. So what you do is you fly where you're comfortable, and over time, without you realizing, all of a sudden, then you can fly a little bit closer, and then you're still comfortable, and then a little bit more, and then all of a sudden, now there is a point where you get where we are that I'm just not going to fly any closer. There's a point where that you have to have that margin of safety for anything and be ready for, especially when it gets rough out. We spread out, we brief things before we go fly. If the wind's blowing hard, we stop and talk, and Mark will say, hey, I'm gonna have to extend this turn to the south. Hey, when I turn back north, you guys be ready. I'm gonna extend it as far as I can, but when I turn and come in, we're coming, we're inbound, so you need to be ready for it. So we brief all that type of stuff. But always fly where you're comfortable. Anybody that wants to learn to do this, trust me, please, if you're not comfortable where you're flying, get out where you are, and you'll learn a lot more.
Well, one of the things that we do, and you'll watch us, I had the wingmans, Steve and Brian, actually ride stepped up. Something Steve and I had learned years before when I used to fly wing. Steve actually, he showed me, he said, man, if you'll ride a little higher, man, it gets a lot easier on your engine. And so we were able to easily move to where we were riding high, and it also gave the slot guy all the room underneath he needed. The closest airplane to him was the lead. Instead of there was no chance that he was going to hit one of the wingmans if he rides too high. And so, but the point is that when we moved up, it was because we already had tons and tons of experience flying wing. And I get guys that come out and the first thing they want to do is start riding stepped up. And it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Let's get back down where you need, it's safer down low. That's where you need to learn. And then when you get proficient, then you can start looking at riding stepped up. But, you know, it took years for us riding as a 3-ship where you had, if you know, one airplane's number, if you got your left wing, you got the whole left side. And then your right wing's got the whole right side. But then when you throw a slot guy in, then that kind of starts limiting your airspace, and you got to have the discipline in order to do that. But when you're flying out just on somebody's wing or doing a 3-ship, there's no reason to ride stepped up. I mean, we all, you know, especially in training.
Mark, can you fill me for our audience's understanding, when you say stepped up or riding low, can you explain what that means?
Yeah, I mean, if you look, you know, when you're flying on the, like if you fly by NATA rules, which is the North American Trainer Association, when you're flying in a wing, you're supposed to be lined up either on the tail wheel, lined up with the far wingtip, or if you know, it depends on how you brief the flight, but you can also fly off the aileron and the back edge of the cowling. But you're supposed to be riding low enough that you can see one of the hubcaps. So that means that your head, your line of sight is below the wing of the lead. You're supposed to be down that far. The idea being if the engine on the lead airplane quit, you just go underneath. And so, but when I say riding high, we're talking about past, you know, if both airplanes are exactly the same height, then that's wings even, but then you ride high, you'll actually move a foot or so above the airplane in front of you. And that's where we fly wing when we're flying a 4-ship. And then the slot guy gives him room to come up nice and tight. So when you see, if you ever look at a picture with his head on, you can always see that the 2 wing guys are actually just a touch above the lead.
Got it.
The advantage of riding a little bit high, the advantage is like when you do a loop, you're traveling less distance. It's like a horse on the inside of a track. So if you're riding low doing a loop, you're having to travel a lot more distance. So you're losing that energy. The other thing about riding high is I actually ride the wake coming off the top of the wing of the lead. I can feel his wing will actually pick my wing up, and I can actually roll up on it like a wakeboard, and I can actually feel that, and I can get a little momentum out of that. Alan used to always complain about it, flying lead, and Mark too. They said we could actually steer the lead around by pushing on that wake. And you can ask the leads to talk about that a little bit. And that's kind of amazing. Here you are behind them, and you ride up on top of that wake and push down on it, and I can turn that lead into me.
Wow.
Yeah. And when I'm leading, and let's say that Jimmy does a really good slide where he stays, if Brian's riding high where he's supposed to be, and Jimmy gets in there, I can actually feel him get into position, because he'll actually raise my tail up when he starts getting in there close. The bow wake off of his cowling will push my tail up.
Wow, that's pretty impressive when you're that close that your wingman can actually steer your plane.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Hey,
that's what we call a pro move.
Yeah.
If
So any last tips for someone who's let's say let's see, there's a couple people in the audience there that have some experience that maybe have just starting to develop a routine, and they're wondering, how in the world do I break into the air show circuit as the ABC crew or whatever they are?
One thing about it,
you guys.
there's no shortcuts. It's all gasoline through the carburetor. That's the only thing that gets you there is gas through the carburetor. Nobody has a magic formula to make it easy. It's all experience. It's all practice. That's what gets you to the end game. Is you just have to practice.
Yep. That
You know,
makes sense.
I like, talking to people like you're talking about, and every time I'll say, how many hours you got? And one of the most disappointing responses is, well, I've only got 200 hours. So you know what I tell them? I say, Bob Hoover had 200 hours at one time. I had 200 hours at one. I said everybody had 200 hours at one time. So don't look at it that way. You're just at that point, and you grow from there. So,
Excellent.
Just,
well,
come
guys,
see
I
us
want
at
to
the
thank
air
you.
show. We're always approachable.
Yep. And you are by far the most approachable, and I like to think of as just the most fun air show performers and crew in general aviation. I cannot thank you enough for joining the show, and I cannot wait to see you at AirVenture and see all those beautiful T6s flying in formation, making that noise, and putting gas through the carburetor, as you said.
There you go.
Jeffrey, we're looking forward to AirVenture and Sun and Fun this year, and many more air shows. I think we've got 14 or 15. Barksdale Air Force Base, Lake Charles, Louisiana. We've really got a good list. Tell a few of the places, Mark, that we're going so far.
Well, we're going to Dayton, Ohio. We're going to Kansas City. I had to go down the list. We've got Hammond, Louisiana. We're going there this year. Of course, obviously, Stewart. We're going to go back to Stewart. Obviously, Sun and Fun and Oshkosh. I'm sitting there thinking, trying to look at the list. I think.
Mark, you're actually breaking up a little bit too.
On our website.
Mark, you're breaking up a little bit.
But we've got, I think we're up to 16 now. We're going to Louisville, Mississippi. Trying to think where else we're going. Tavares, we're doing one in Tavares the weekend before Sun and Fun. We're actually doing a night show over the lake there in Leesburg.
Excellent.
Yeah,
that sounds great.
Okay.
Well, Jeffrey, thank you so much for having us. We really do appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's been
look at our website.
Much.
It'll have our schedule on there for too long. We're going to Peru, Illinois, to the TBM Avenger reunion.
Excellent. All right, guys. Well, listen, we are out of time, but I would just again like to thank you so much for taking time to join us here on SocialFlight Live. You are probably the most iconic and most fun performers that I have seen at any
Thank you so much.
in general aviation. And so again, thanks for taking the time to do that. I look forward to seeing you at the show. It would be great to get some additional time and share that, and I encourage everyone to go take a look at the schedule on the website. Just search for Team AeroShell or the AeroShell Aerobatic Team, and go watch them perform, and you'll see them walking around. And again, guys, you're the most approachable, and I will treasure for the rest of my life the opportunity that I had to fly with you both and with all of you. Until next time, I'm Jeff Simon for SocialFlight. Thanks to all of you for taking time out of your evening and joining us here for this show. We will be back next Tuesday with NASA astronaut David Williams, as well as on March 9th, we're joined by Mikey McBrien of the Ice Pilots on the Discovery Channel. And on March 16th, author Jamie Beckett will be here, as always, on SocialFlight Live. Until next time, blue skies.